Congratulations, you just survived the greatest liquidation event in crypto history. It was a straight firestorm out there. Now, the match that lit the fuse, of course, was President Trump's announcement of new tariffs on China, possibly canceling his meeting with the president of China. That set everything off, but there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more catalysts. We're going to dig through it. What happened? Where do we go from here? We're going to hear from Tom Lee, some words of wisdom, Mohammed El Arin. There's a lot to work through here because this was a big one, historic. This was a historic crash. Let's get into the damage first and foremost. Bitcoin right now, at the time of this recording, is down 7%. We're sitting at 112,000. Again, it was much worse throughout the day. We see Ethereum. It doesn't get any better in the altcoin space. Ethereum down 12%, down under $4,000. And XRP down 15%, just under $2.40. And again, it was much worse earlier in the day. I think we wicked down below $2 at one point. I mean, it was nasty here. Now, we see this post here. Today's decline officially marks the single day record for liquidations in crypto. And at the time of this post, it got much worse. More than 9 billion was liquidated over the last 24 hours. Again, this was a little earlier in the day. The fun and games were just beginning, and it was already the worst ever. To put this in context here, the COVID crash, 1.2 billion in crypto liquidations. FTX, 1.6 billion. Today, at one point, got to $19 billion in liquidation. This is the biggest event in crypto history in a lot of ways. We see President Trump again announcing additional 100% tariffs on China, new tech controls, possibly canceling his meeting with the president of China. But that's just what set it off, and I think this really summed it up well. Heading into this announcement, this tariff announcement, markets, they were looking for a catalyst for a pullback. Leverage was through the roof. That's what you saw, all of that unwinding today. We had not seen a 2% decline in the S&P for 6 months. President Trump's post was the reason to sell off, and it's what remains a broader uptrend. And the fact that we saw nearly 20 billion liquidated in the crypto markets in 24 hours is clear evidence that leverage was through the roof here. Fear and greed are powerful emotions. So again, people got out over their skis. They were way too over leveraged, and that unwound today. It's probably healthy, to be honest with you, for the long term. But what's our perspective here? Is this, the end of the road? I think Tom Lee says it well here. Let's listen to what he has to say.
If I said, okay, what are the reasons stocks have been attractive for the past 12 months? It's been about the innovation coming from AI, and it's the innovation as Wall Street looks onto the blockchain, and now it's the Fed that's beginning an easing cycle. These three things have structural tailwinds that aren't disrupted because of potential even rare earth dispute with China. If I said, okay, what?
So this is the deal. This is serious. Right now, we're still in a shutdown. We'll talk about that a little bit. We have more trade disputes, fights over rare earth, all serious issues. But, what brought us here? What are we excited about? That stuff is still there. What he says, the big drivers here, artificial intelligence, of course, the integration, Wall Street moving into blockchain, and also an easing cycle for the Federal Reserve. Those three things are still intact. Further, for us on crypto, we're going to get legislation done, new ETFs. Things are looking up. I think there's plenty to be excited about. And this was to be expected. Again, the longer we're in this shutdown, you are going to see this type of reaction. We are not able to launch ETFs. We're not able to get regulations done. And really, with this shutdown, the longer it lingers, there's a more probability it doesn't get done at all. And that's the danger here. They need to end this thing, because if it goes into next year, they start worrying about the next election, and we may not get this done. So this is important. We have to strike while the iron is hot. Now, what happens the 15th? Well, the military is supposed to get paid, and we're still in the shutdown. Those checks don't get out. And that's when there's going to be a lot more pressure to get this thing done, to come to a deal. Now, there's no guarantee. Again, the longest ever shutdown was 35 days. So, this thing could drag on, but hopefully it's wrapped up here quickly, and you won't even think about today. The biggest crash in crypto history you won't care about because of those major catalysts. You'll see ETFs launch, crypto regs getting done, all sorts of explosive catalysts here on the near horizon. I think that's really what we need to pay attention to. That's what's going to take us where we want to go here. Now, Moon Lambo, he brings up a good point here. The trouble with capitulation events is you can't count on being able to access exchanges. And we saw this with Coinbase. I saw Uphold. We saw quite a few exchanges go down. That infrastructure, it can't handle this type of volatility. That type of people rush into the market to sell, to get out, to transfer off. These things go down. It happens every single time in an event like this. Now, Kobe had really interesting perspective here. Probably one of the most severe flushes I've seen on alts. And I didn't even imagine alts had this much leverage in them. So we're looking at the value. Who knew there was this much leverage out there? But it was there. It was underlying everything. And it feels like someone got hit very hard, and we will see a large body float to the surface soon. Reminds me of the summer of 2021. So where we saw, markets react today, we saw financial markets sell off, and that's to be expected. But it was such an overreaction in the crypto space. And again, even in alts that probably didn't have as much leverage as this would indicate. Someone might have went under. Someone we don't know of yet. Someone very large. And if that's the case, we're going to hear about it in the coming days. It's very possible. I think Kobe might be onto something. One of the, really OGs of this space. Now let's listen to Mohammed El-Aren. I think this is important because he's making the case. Look, yeah, it is, of course, trade tensions. That's part of it. But there's more here. There's more catalyst to this downturn than just that. Let's hear what he has to say.
The second one that's flying under the radar screen, but it matters, the second announcement, is the layoffs are starting, which questions the notion that this is just a regular shutdown where once we reopen, everything will be fine and the markets will just look through it. So it's two bits of news, a big bit of news and a secondary bit of news that is causing us to question what has been very friendly assumptions about the environment in which the stock market has gone from record to record.
And there's a couple things here. First of all, layoffs, the job market, that's what you should be most concerned with. That's what the Federal Reserve is concerned with. That's why you see them starting to pivot dovish, talk about bringing the rates down, being more loosey-goosey with their balance sheet, because that job market, it will capitulate quickly. So that's part of it, of course. And further, he goes on to say that, you know what? Much like Tom Lee, and I cut this part out of the interview, but much like Tom Lee thinks there's still going to be those drivers of AI, of blockchain. This doesn't end the bull run, but it's serious and it's going to cause a lot of pain for sure. But let's continue on with what Mohammed has to say.
I really think that maybe this is the first showing itself of the shutdown, which the market had all but ignored up until today, if in fact it is, as you suggest, thinking about the layoffs that, were announced via social media posts from the head of OMB, as well as this escalation with China.
I do, because the market had seen this movie before, the shutdown movie. We thought we knew how it ends. It ends by people getting paid for what they've missed and no layoffs. And now suddenly there is a higher probability. It's not overwhelming, but there's a higher probability of permanent layoffs. Now you're dealing with the bit of the economy, the K-shaped economy that's already vulnerable. So this is another development that is pulling the rug from a working assumption that was actually a very comforting working assumption that this is the same movie, we've seen it, we know exactly what happens.
So it's part of the realization that, the shutdown may be more serious than we previously hoped for. It also was the idea that, trade tensions were softening, that President Trump and President Xi were going to meet and kind of work things out. And now that's looking like it's on edge. Like people, I think, were just overly nervous and a lot of the leverage got unwound, I think is what we're looking at here. Again, where do we stand from here? We're waiting. We know what we're waiting for. We're waiting for the shutdown to end. We're waiting for ETFs to launch. We're waiting for regulations, which is probably the biggest of all, because that's going to open the floodgates for that money to really come flooding into this space. Today just shows you have to be built for bear. You never know when it's coming for you. If you're over leveraged, it'll take you out in a second, and then you're done. There's no coming back from that. Us, just general investors that are holding our investment, maybe we took advantage of this and bought some really good deals today. Great. We'll make it through this. It does not take crypto much longer to catch back to where we were and then post some real growth. Not worried at all about that. As long as you don't let a situation like this take you under, you're going to be just fine. We'll be on to bigger and better things. Short of something catastrophic like a major exchange going down or financial institution or some, black swan event, nothing's going to get in our way here. We know where this leads. The path to get there is always bumpy. This is why most people don't make it. It's not the end of the world. Let me know what you think down below. As always, please like, please subscribe. The revolution will be televised right here on Jungle Link.